Tonight, Tuesday, May 10th, reported from London and the NBC News Center in New York.
Good evening. The Senate Foreign Relations Committee voted today to improve relations with Cuba. It recommended that the Cubans be allowed to buy medicine and agricultural products, including grain, in the United States. The committee is against opening American markets to Cuban sugar, since that lucrative prospect could be used in later bargaining with Fidel Castro. There is no indication of when the Senate will vote on the committee's action.
This is NBC Nightly News with John Chancellor and David Brinkley. Tonight, Tuesday, May 17th, reported from the NBC News Center in New York.
Good evening. Today, for the first time since Castro, a shipload of American tourists arrived in Cuba to spend 2 nights to look around and to see...
Nightly News with John Chancellor and David Brinkley. Tonight, Monday, June 6th, reported from London and the NBC News Center in New York.
Good evening. At high noon on June 22nd, H.R. Haldeman and John Mitchell have to go to prison for their Watergate crimes. That was the order given them in a federal courtroom in Washington today by the same judge who presided at their trial, John Sirica. Mitchell will be the first cabinet member since the Teapot Dome scandals in the 20s to be locked up. Here's Ford Rowan in Washington.
This was probably the final appearance before Judge Sirica for H.R. Haldeman and for John Mitchell. As he had before, Mitchell complained about the cameras and microphones outside.
I'm going to get through here first, and if anybody puts one of those near me, I'm going to knock it down his throat.
Why is that?
Because I don't want to get hit again.
Inside the courtroom where they were convicted, it took less than 5 minutes to set the date. Sirica told Mitchell and Haldeman to surrender on June 22nd and begin serving prison sentences. Both defendants signed forms agreeing to surrender, Mitchell probably to Allenwood, Pennsylvania. Haldeman likely will serve his sentence in Lompoc, California. Outside, Haldeman spoke briefly with reporters.
More than 4 years ago, I started a legal process that I felt at the time was going to be difficult, but that I believed was right. I still believe that that was the right decision, and I'm prepared now to accept the results.
Mitchell said nothing to reporters. Both men have been sentenced to between 2.5 and 8 years in prison. Ford Rowan, NBC News, Washington.
That was about the end of the high drama of Watergate. After 5 years, one of the low periods in American history is now history. Other news coming up: Supreme Court rulings on the mandatory death penalty. From Great Britain across that country, 103 bonfires celebrate the Queen's Silver Jubilee and whatever happened to Orville Faubus. But the Supreme Court says now that law is unconstitutional because it says it does not allow each case to be considered on its merits, does not allow for considering whatever mitigating circumstances there might be. Here's Carl Stern in Washington.
Amid the fun and revelry of the Mardi Gras 3 years ago, a policeman was shot and killed by a man shooting up the neighborhood. It was called the case of the Mardi Gras killer. The man convicted was Harry Roberts.
With less than 2 out, former Chicago White Soxer Bill Stein will sacrifice to deep center field, and Rupert Jones will tag up to score the first run. 1-0 Mariners after 5. But in the 6th inning, Oscar Gamble hits this shot way up into the stands over the right field barrier, with George Orta on base to make it 2-1 White Sox. And the next hitter is Jim Spencer, who's as hot as the fireworks
tonight, even though...
Still, they're going to provide us quick transportation over there. That's it. That's not in there yet. Did these guys drive that machine? They drive so? I don't know if they'll take you or not. They don't let anybody ride on their foot. That's it. That's it. Let's go. Let's go.
Smart. We can walk right over there and get a shot at that car driving out because there's only one place that can go out over there.
Are they on the... They're coming down the road right now. We're here live at Maxwell Federal Prison Camp where John Mitchell is arriving by motorcade. Looks like about 3 or 4 cars that are leading the motorcade.
Come on, Gary.
Obviously, Mr. Mitchell would not answer any questions. Instead, pushed his way inside the prison. He arrived around 10 o'clock by a private Learjet. It's still not known who owned the Learjet, but he did not come on a commercial airline as had previously been predicted. So the scene now. John Mitchell has arrived at the Maxwell Federal Prison Camp. That's about all we have for now. This is Dave Rickey reporting live from Maxwell Prison Camp.
Coming out again out the other door about 10 minutes.
Are they still taping? Tell them just to keep taping. Car park on it? No, you got it. Come on. That's all you got. I think we'll give you some more. Okay.
David? David? Think through? Now the warden said... Oh, he's talking about the car. He's talking about the car. Come.
Mr. Mitchell's being escorted by several marshals and officials of the prison. We don't know which bunker he's going into. The prisoners are looking interesting. The only comments Mr. Mitchell has made so far were, it was nice to be back in Alabama, and it's a nice day in Alabama. Smiling somewhat, frowning most of the time, though. He just now entered the guard's quarters, which time I would guess he will be assigned to which bunker he's going to use. Well, that's just about all that's happening right now. If anything else comes up, we'll get back to you. This is Dave Rickey, WSFA TV News, reporting live from Maxwell Federal Prison Camp.
got enough. Switch to what? Switch, start taping from here?
There's a space over someplace.
Let me see, how many new people? What?
Sorry, I can't copy you. There's too much traction there. You said something about a federal marshal.
Any better?
Yes, it is.
Lunsford.
Found the Lunsford again. Get out of the way.
Probably thinking it's all over. That's right. I should insist on it for my own comfort. I'm just waiting for some of the others.
Do you make the assignments? Do you feel any pressure under these circumstances?
I don't make the assignments.
Who makes the assignments?
Members of my staff.
You wait till
This is why. I want to wait till most people, then I don't have to. I wonder why you people are here today. No. What I've got the group together is to just brief you on what transpired when Mr. Mitchell came into the building. As you know, he arrived at 10:30 this morning. He checked in with our record clerk. It's identified, of course. Came with his attorney. And I asked him to come in my office simply to brief him on what he could expect from here on out. He obviously saw all of the media representatives here, and so I simply indicated to him that what he has read and heard is the situation, in that he is and will be handled as any other inmate coming into this facility, and also that from leaving my office, he would be taken to Building 1229, which he has done, where he would be photographed, fingerprinted, and issued our khaki clothing, and would begin his orientation period. Then, at the request of several members of the media, I asked him if he would consent to an interview with the members of the TV or the press, and he stated that he gave me blanket authority as of this time to turn down that request and any similar requests in the foreseeable future. Mr. Mitchell then was taken by our receiving and discharge officer, Mr. Foss, to Building 1229 where he's being processed.
What is the orientation period going to be about, Mr. Gritzka? Did he ask any questions? Let's go back to that.
No, he made no, he asked no questions of me, made no statements. I met him, of course, because it's the first time I have seen the man. But again, this is not unusual. I meet, if I run into new inmates coming in during the day, I introduce myself to them, whether they're a person such as Mr. Mitchell or someone coming in here for 6 months for bank fraud.
Do you really believe he can be treated like any other prisoner, considering that he was a former Attorney General of the United States?
I really believe he can be treated like any other inmate by our staff and probably by the inmate body and certainly by myself.
3 other gentlemen came in handcuffs just about 15 minutes prior to Mr. Mitchell. What were their charges, sir, and will they go through the orientation period?
They will be, I don't know what their charges are. 2 of them are being returned from a writ. They were out at court in a writ and they have been here before. And so they're being returned, which is a normal procedure. But they will be undergo the same orientation if they're brand new as Mr. Mitchell.
Well, now, Mr. Mitchell will go through orientation. Let's go back to that and what that means.
Well, to begin with, he will join the individuals who have been received today. I will be talking with them as a group or in a group tomorrow, which I do with all new men, see them the day after arrival, to give some background and introduce myself to the people and what they can expect from us and what we would expect from them. I deal strictly in generalities. It is not a thou shalt now session, but brief them on what they can expect. And then various staff members will be filling them in on items such as where to turn in their linen, when to get up in the morning, when to eat, and just a familiarization.
You know what he'll be assigned?
Well, same as any other federal facility.
Tell what that is.
What is that?
That would, in general terms, this means that on an emergency, for instance, there's another means or a need to be home for a compelling reason, he may be considered for furlough under those circumstances.
Could he be considered for a short furlough to go and visit friends in Montgomery?
No, ma'am.
He would not get that kind of furlough.
No, ma'am. No one does.
Hey, Butch.
Okay, and the exact same thing happened over there, except he was faster and he was closer. And you
Brown shirt. Dark brown pants. Dark brown.
Break 19 1033 traffic from a bear. Break 19 for 1033 traffic. Break 19, all you 18-wheelers need to be on the lookout for a white male about 5'6" to 5'8", 30 pounds, 5'6" to 5'8", 30 pounds. He's going to be 160 pounds, 30 years old, 5'6" to 5'8". He's got gray pants and sideburns, had a blonde wig on. Now, he just robbed this bank over on 80 West, and he left his truck at Gowan's truck stop, so he's probably going to be hitchhiking. Anybody picks up a hitchhiker or sees a hitchhiker similar to this, advise the police.
You're not going to have my hand, are you? Could you give us an account of what occurred here this morning, sir?
Well, at approximately 9 o'clock, we were notified down at the main office that the southwestern branch here had been robbed, and immediately Mr. Leslie, the executive vice president, Mr. Martin, senior vice president, and I rushed out here in Mr. Martin's car, and of course it was all over when we got here, but evidently the manager, Charles Batchelor, was waylaid when he parked his car about 7:45 this morning. The robber put a gun to his head, as I understand it, forced him to open the bank, and then as the employees arrived, they were handcuffed, made to lie on the floor, and the man evidently was a professional because he knew how to have the vault custodian open the vault. Then he told them that they would not be harmed if they obeyed, and they'd all be shot if they didn't.
Did he bound any of them? Did he tie them up?
No, just handcuffed them and made them lie on the floor face down, as I understand it.
Did he threaten to kill anybody?
Said he would kill any of them and all of them, as I understand it, if they didn't do what he said. Otherwise, they would not be harmed if they obeyed him.
Was the vault already open,
No,
or did he wait till the time
he waited
lock?
till the time lock went off. And
Did
he
you give
he knew some of the other precautions also that we take.
Have you ever been able to determine how much was taken?
Not yet. The auditors are working on that now.
Had any of the bank employees seen this man previous to this morning?
Not that I'm aware of, but he was disguised, as I understand it. He had a wig on, very large dark glasses, and large band-aids over his nose and cheeks.
Did they see what type of vehicle he used to get away?
He got away in the manager's car, a truck. And it was found abandoned, as I understand it, at Gowan's truck stop, and evidently he had his own car there.
Was anybody injured?
No, fortunately no. And I do want to say that I think all of our personnel conducted themselves admirably, and certainly the FBI, the Montgomery Police Department, the state troopers, and all the other police authorities were right on the scene, and as far as I can tell, are in charge and doing everything they possibly can to apprehend him. I understand that they feel that this man has conducted several robberies over the southeast in recent months, and they have a pretty good track record on it.
Were you able to get any pictures from your bank cameras?
No, they had not been turned on. That early in the morning, they would not have been on.
Thank you very much.
Special The $1 Billion Movies, honoring Jaws, The Godfather, The Graduate, and other giant hits. The Father Knows Best Reunion and The $1 Billion Movies on The Big Event, Sunday starting at 8, 7 Central Time.